With Final Fantasy XVI releasing somewhat recently, it inspired me to return to Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm sure this game needs no introduction, since it was a project everyone was excited for. But like I normally am, I was pretty late to this game. But after finally finishing it a couple months ago, I thought I could share my thoughts on this game. Since Rebirth is set to release sometime in 2024, I figured this was a decent time to make a review. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. Most fans of Final Fantasy VII Classic know that the story was changed pretty drastically in the remake. While a lot of fans have their own opinions of it, I liked the new story. I don't really mind the way the story is going. I think rewriting it is a decent way to keep old and new fans guessing what will happen next. But then, on the other side, I don't think anyone was expecting the whole story to be completely remade. Sure, games like Resident Evil 4 Remake and Yakuza Kiwami change parts of the story, but they ultimately are the same. But Final Fantasy VII Remake changes a lot of plot points, such as certain characters still being alive and events happening differently. Even so, I still enjoyed the story. It had plenty of funny, serious, and sentimental moments. There weren't any points in the game that left me confused about the story. The plot flowed together nicely and didn't have any big leaps from events that would leave the player confused. The team who was writing the story was obviously talented since it was all very well done, in my opinion at least. This game also has a great cast of characters. I love Cloud as a protagonist. He has an interesting backstory and acts as a level-headed middleman throughout the game. Other characters like Tifa and Barret act pretty similar to their PS1 counterpart, so the team did a good job translating them into the remake. So, overall, the new story is done well, and I have zero complaints with any other character or how the game ends. Let's talk about Sephiroth. Sephiroth is terribly executed in the remake. The game never tells you or gives you any hints about his backstory or motivations. On top of that, he's not even a threat until near the end of the game. Throughout the game, Sephiroth shows up in Cloud's mind as hallucinations. None of the other characters seem to notice him whenever Cloud sees him, so that's just my assumption. Until you escape Shinra headquarters when he just shows up for real this time, there's no build-up or foreshadowing to this happening either. He just appears out of nowhere, and I'm guessing it's real this time since the other characters notice his existence. So the game ends with Sephiroth, I'm just gonna call him Sephi for the rest of this video. Sephi taunting Cloud to come get him, ripping a hole to a new dimension, your party killing this demon thing, Sephi offering to let you deny destiny with him, Cloud refuses, then boom, game ends. This ending was extremely confusing since nothing in it gets explained, especially Sephi as a character. The only info you get about him in this game is Aerith giving you a short info dump about how Sephi wants to destroy the planet, which isn't enough information to make you feel afraid of him or want to take him down. If you do some research about Sephiroth, the ending makes a lot more sense, but I shouldn't have to look up the main villain's motivations. It should be explained to me in the game. I can think of two ways to fix this ending. 1. Just don't have Sephi in the game if you're not going to explain him. I know it's Final Fantasy VII and everyone loves him as a villain, but if the game doesn't take the time to explain him as a villain, just have a different villain and focus on Sephi in a different game. Or 2, explain him as a character and sprinkle him throughout the story. More info about Sephiroth would be great, but it doesn't have to be a giant lore dump. It could be small nuggets of information that slowly build him up as a villain. And then toss him in the main game at least a couple times, maybe getting in the way or causing inconveniences or destruction. That way the player can get a sense of him as a character. I could go on about this for a while, but to keep it short, I thought the ending and Sephi weren't all that great. The game really should have given you at least a bare bones explanation, and not the one Aerith gave. That one felt a little too simple and rushed in my opinion. But other than those two things, I did enjoy the story we had. I thought it was good. I think the new games will be fun, and I'm excited to see where it goes next, because I really am interested in this new story the remake is trying to give us. I think now is a good time to move on to the gameplay of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake has some really well-constructed combat. Instead of being a turn-based RPG, it's more like a real-time hack and slash. Each character has attacks and combos they can perform that feel really satisfying. Personally, my favorite character to play as was Tifa. Her combat was the most fun out of all the other characters, and just watching her ruthlessly punching stuff was pretty awesome. Other characters like Cloud and Barret were pretty fun to play as too. You also have access to limit moves, which are a lot more cinematic and cool looking in the remake. We also see the return of staggering enemies in this game. Similar to games like Shin Megami Tensei, enemies have weaknesses. If you exploit those weaknesses, it'll stun them for a short period of time. This allows you to pile up as much damage as possible, which is pretty fulfilling. You can also participate in things like the Corneo Coliseum or the Shinra Combat Simulator if you'd like to dive into more battles. In addition, there's plenty of skills and equipment to use for all of your party members. I'll be honest, I hardly touched that stuff. It's a wonder I even finished the game. But there are plenty of weapons and upgradable skills to use for your party members to enhance combat. Or, if you want to take a break from the fighting, there's plenty of side quests and hidden collectibles to find throughout the map. This game supplies the player with plenty of different activities to do, which is really cool to see. I enjoyed all the gameplay this title had to offer. Activities like squats, whack-a-box, and darts were fun inclusions that gave the player something new to do. And the combat was pretty much perfect in my opinion. It had a good amount of depth and mechanics while also just being a lot of fun to mess around with. I honestly think this is one of the best combat systems the series has, and I hope it comes back in future titles. Lastly, I'll finish up with some other quick miscellaneous things the game has that I wanted to mention before the end of this video. I thought the OST was amazing. Songs like Do Recompense, Let the Battles Begin, and Lay Down Some Rubber were all amazing tracks. Every song is composed incredibly well in this game. I genuinely don't think there's a bad song in this game. Next, all the voice actors did an amazing job, especially Cody Christian. I thought his voice fit Cloud perfectly, and he delivered his lines very well. The rest of the cast does an amazing job too. All the dialogue and performances are done pretty much perfectly in my opinion. Once again, the voice cast did a great job. Finally, I really liked the sound design in this game. All the sound effects were really high quality and sounded great. Things like weapons colliding or footsteps sounded good. I know sound design may seem unimportant, but it adds a pretty decent amount of immersion and quality to a video game. And Final Fantasy VII Remake nailed it here. I enjoyed my time with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Sure, I thought the main villain and ending could have been better, but other than those two things, this game was put together incredibly well. The combat is fun and rewarding, the music is amazing, and the graphics are marvelous. This game doesn't feel like some cheap cash-in. The quality of this remake is spectacular. If you've never played a Final Fantasy game or you're curious about this remake, I'd strongly recommend it. It's a great Final Fantasy game I think new and old fans will thoroughly enjoy.